I think that might be the largest detonation I've seen of the war to date. Seen a lot of things exploding over inside of Iran, and that one's pretty big. That actually just came out a little bit ago over inside of Iran. It, to me, appears as if we ended up hitting some sort of a munitions depot inside of Iran. That actually took place in the city of Qom. And we have been launching some pretty heavy strikes over there the last couple of days. No word yet on what this particular one is, but as you guys can see, it's pretty freaking massive. I don't think the United States is going to slow down on targeting Iran much in the future, particularly because Iran has now came out and started attacking commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, which is exactly what we're going to be going over today, which is why I was just a couple minutes late getting started, because there is several vessels that have been attacked, and there's several different warnings that have came out. I wanted to make sure that I could track down the actual information for you guys to have that. At the same time, last night, I think some of you guys asked me about whether or not particular ports and oil holding structures have been struck by Iran. That is coming out as to be correct and true. They mostly did over inside of Oman. I've got some fresh videos of that that you guys are going to see here in just a little bit. So I hope you all are ready for a good show. But yeah, it's not looking good for Iran. They decided that they wanted to mess around today. On top of that, not only is Iran, blasting these ships, they're also stating that they are going to shut down the entire strait. They're going to shut down the entire strait, and they're going to drive the cost of oil up to $200 a barrel.
البته پرقدرت تکرار میکنیم هرگز اجازه نمیدهیم حتی 1 لیتر نفت به نفع آمریکا و صهیونیست ها و شرکای آنها از تنگه هرمز عبور کند و هر شناوری که شناور و یا محموله نفتی آن برای آمریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی و شرکای متخاصم آنها باشد هدف مشروع ما خواهد بود. راهبرد پنهان شدن شما پشت کشورهای همسایه ایران اسلامی و مسلمان منطقه غرب آسیا و بلکه جهان منقضی شده است. ترفند پنهان شدن ارتش بزدل شما در اماکن عمومی و زیرساخت‌های کشورهای منطقه نمیتواند ارتش شما را از باطلاقی که در آن گرفتار شده اید نجات دهد و مراکز حیاتی و پایگاه‌هایتان یکی پس از دیگری در آتشی که شعله‌ور کردید میسوزد و دوباره خواهد سوخت. خون رهبر شهیدمان و قائد عظیم الشأن امت اسلامی را خط بطلانی بر هر گونه انفعال می‌دانیم. سیاست ضربه متقابل از سوی ما پایان یافته و سیاست ضربه پشت ضربه را تا تنبیه و پشیمانی کامل شما پیش رو داریم.
I want to remind everybody this is the same Iran that stated on Saturday that they were not going to be attacking any of their Gulf neighbors. I just wanted to throw that out there as we continue on with this. So not only are we seeing civilian vessels getting struck, now they're just threatening to basically go ballistic.
بار هم که شده صادق باشید، قهرمان نمایی نکنید و به شکست خود در طول تاریخ آمریکا و از زمان بسته شدن نطفه نحس رژیم صهیونیستی اعتراف کنید و به زبان غلط کردن خود را تلفظ کنید. بارها به حضور ناوهایتان در آبهای منطقه اشاره کردید. یک بار هم که کمی جلو آمدید با قدرت موشکی ایران عقب نشینی کردید. از روز اول تجاوز شما انتظار آنها را میکشیم تا به شما ثابت کنیم که ارتش بزدل شما کوچکتر از آن است که روی آن حساب میکنید. شما باید بدانید که نخواهید توانست قیمت نفت و انرژی را با تنفس مصنوعی پایین بیاورید که با گسترش جنگ در منطقه اعلام کردیم منتظر بشکه‌ای $200 باشید.
Oh, you guys should prepare for $200 a barrel oil because Iran says so. All right. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys some stuff here in a little bit. Saudi Arabia has already found a workaround and actually enacted the workaround. So what they're complaining about isn't that big of a deal. He also says that our military needs to go ahead and admit defeat, that we retreated, that we ran away, so on and so forth is what, they're just losing their dang minds. Well, yesterday there was information that came out from the press that Iran was mining the Strait of Hormuz. And we didn't really get a lot of other information out of that other than, intel leak. Iran was mining the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump came out, said it wasn't true, said that wasn't necessarily the case. And then the United States turned around and just started bombing the crap out of a bunch of like Iranian mining vessels that were over there. So what is the actual truth? What actually took place? Well, multiple different news agencies are coming out with different stories about how many mines Iran has actually dropped. And the answer I was given, or the answer that I read, was like less than 10. And I find that a little bit hard to believe, seeing as how we have what appears to be 3 confirmed attacks now going on over inside of the strait. And we're going to touch on that here in just a minute. One of the vessels actually got hit in the bottom of the hull. All of this started yesterday. I'm going to get this up and pause it for you real quick. And you guys can see that there is a fire down here in the very bottom of the hull, right down here at the bottom. I'm about to read to you guys and show you guys the warnings from the international shipping company thing that tracks it about all of this stuff. But you can see that the hole is down in the bottom of the vessel, right? To me, this definitely appears to be a mine. And on some of the mines that I read on, and we'll talk about some of those, Iran probably laid more than 3 mines. They probably laid more than 10 mines. The strait's not that big across, and there's only so wide of a shipping channel going through over there. But if they scattered enough mines over there that they're actually striking ships on the first day following, we've got problems. Iran might have actually mined this thing a lot. I don't know why Donald Trump would try to come out and cover it up or say that they didn't do it. But to me, when I look at this vessel right here, it certainly would appear as if we've got a massive hole that's kind of like underneath the vessel that's in it. They've called rescue crews to go over there and check the dang thing out. And what how do I want to say this? They showed up. They helped evacuate the ship. The fire was put out. There's no danger to the environment, which you guys are about to see here in a little bit. There's no danger to the environment. The crews got off safe. Fire's out. But the issue that I have is the hole in the bottom of the hole, if that makes any sense, because Iran's got access to these different mines. Here, we've got a much better look at it here up on the screen, this bottom left one. Iran has access to these Chinese like sea mines. And what they actually do is they lay on the bottom and then they wait for a ship to come over it. And then they launch a projectile, almost like a torpedo, straight up into the bottom of the vessel. Now, this is going to be a problem for Iran. This is going to be a very big problem for Iran. International community likes its oil. International community likes all of those things. A hole. Yeah. Hole in the bottom of the hole. Yeah. Let's try to get the verbiage straight. Yeah. It's going to be a problem. International community isn't going to take likely to this. They're not going to be happy about it. They're going to be pissed off, and you're going to have a lot of repercussions because of this. And I think that the reason Iran is doing this and the reason Iran is targeting these vessels has to do with the financial system. Last night and yesterday, I talked about the Iranian banks. Let me see if I can grab that real quick and put it up for you. Because what ended up happening was their banks ended up getting froze yesterday. And I told you guys, and I warned you that the UAE that was about to enter into this fight, as they said so on Saturday, controls the Iranian banking system. Iran only has a GDP of about 350 billion, roughly, and about 100 billion of that or less is controlled by the UAE. And a couple days after the UAE ends up announcing this, or not announcing it, that they're going to end up going to war, now we've got attacks going on against the international community, and Iran's trying to strike the international community monetarily by going after these vessels. So it seems, at least in my opinion, that the UAE has already begun launching they've already begun launching a financial campaign against Iran, and the Iranians are pretty ticked off about it, and they're, I don't know, trying to figure out what they're going to do at the end of the day. We'll go through some of these other angles and photographs and things like that. This is kind of the biggest one before we get into it, though, which is what the UAE is doing about it. UAE is not laying down just taking this. Obviously, they get a lot of money from oil, but they have a pipeline that stretches from the Arabian Gulf all the way over to the Red Sea. You guys can see it up there on the screen. It's that blue line. So apparently the UAE has started this pipeline up, and it's just going to be constantly pumping oil across now. And honestly, it's going to end up saving a buttload of money anyways. Are we going to get as much through? Maybe. I don't know. It's going to make money I'm sorry, not the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Why did I say the UAE? Saudi Arabia has opened up their pipeline. They're going to be pumping. You guys can see, Saudi's got a crude oil pipeline as well. Excuse me, the UAE, dear Lord, Matt. Wow, man, brain fog this morning. The UAE right down here has their own pipeline, and Saudi Arabia has their own pipeline. And you can see Saudi's stretches all the way across the map, connecting the Arabian Gulf to the Red Sea over here. UAE's got their own. I don't think this is going to be as big of a deal as everybody's making it. Those ships have been laying dormant over inside of the Red Sea for a while. We looked at it last night, pulling up the marine traffic and what it actually looks like over there, and I'll put it up on the map again. You guys can see, and I brought this up yesterday when people asked me, is the Strait of Hormuz actually shut down? Well, I think it is shut down, and I'm going to show you guys why here in a minute, because you have just a couple groups of freaking merchant vessels that are all grouped together out in the water, like stacked, just floating out in the middle of the sea because they can't make it through the strait. So they're all just hanging out over there. There was a couple that were hanging, that were, kind of heading out over into Iran last night. And now we can see them all starting to slowly group up on this side. We see another massive group just hanging out down here as well. Here's the thing. Whether or not Iran is able to target all of these vessels going through the Red Sea, their insurance companies are not going to allow them to go through, or not the Red Sea. Dear God, man, why am I brain farting so much this morning? The Strait of Hormuz. Dear God. Regardless of whether or not Iran has shut down the Strait of Hormuz, their insurance companies are not going to let them go through. That's why Donald Trump had brought up and said that he is going to, he's willing to provide insurance and all other stuff. Now, I believe it was Reuters ended up coming out this morning stating that some of these shipping companies have asked the U.S. military for escorts to go through the strait, and the military turned it down. And they're using that as an excuse to try to state that the United States military is weak and we don't have the ability to protect these ships that are going through there, and that we're afraid of the Iranian Navy. You guys are right. I did. I need to put it in a pouch, as a matter of fact. Maybe that's what I'll just do real quick. And I'm scared to do it on screen because I really don't want, YouTube censoring me, even though, in my opinion, it's like drinking a cup of coffee. So yeah, maybe it is a good time for me to just go ahead and throw in a freaking Bravo Energy pouch, which you get 10% off over in the comments. All right. If you guys go down over into the description of the video, Bravo Energy pouches, you get 20 pouches, 50 milligrams of caffeine per pouch, hell of a lot stronger than a cup of coffee. And I love these dang things to death. I know some of you guys complained about the citric acid level over inside of the Bravo Energy pouches. I also got told that they just came out with some new flavors, and I should be getting, here we go, new flavor drop coming up in 5 days. I've got some sample packs of that coming my way, so I'll be able to tell you guys how delicious those suckers are. But you guys can still go over there and get them for 10% off. Using code TRUTH, 10% off for Bravo Energy pouches, caffeine straight into your freaking bloodstream. Go over and get your guys self some. They're freaking great. They're delicious. I love them to death. And I just put one in because my brain's not firing on all cylinders. And if you guys don't think they work, just watch how amped I get as this video continues to go on. And you're gonna be like, all right, look at that. Matt's actually got a lot of caffeine going into his freaking brain right now. All right. So yeah, they were saying that the US, for some reason, doesn't have the ability to follow these ships and escort these ships. It's not that, it's that we're waging a war. Like, we still have this massive war that's going on. So there's not a snowball's chance in hell that the United States Navy has enough ships over there as we're waging a war to just start escorting them. Also, the United States Navy is not primarily an escort service. Now, we do have some Coast Guard vessels that are a little bit further up the Persian Gulf, like up over here in this region towards Kuwait, but they're also busy as well. Normac says, hey, Matt, can I send you some Swedish snus instead? I mean, I wouldn't turn it down. I mean, I've tried it. It burns. I'll tell you that much. I wouldn't turn it down. I'll have to get a mailing address for you guys. As a matter of fact, I mean, you're more than welcome to, but yeah, it's a thing. I can put out an address for you guys here in a little bit. We'll figure it out. But yeah, you guys have been asking me for fan mail address. I should probably open one up for you guys. So that's kind of the deal with what's going on there. We've got not a lot of vessels that are moving through. Now, UKMTO is the name of the organization that I want you guys to kind of get behind. I do not accept your cookies, UKMTO. So we're going to go over here. And if you guys want to follow these warnings, I can actually drop them into the chat for you guys. Matt's glitching in Candace. There's a hole in the hole. Yeah, dude, I don't even want Candace to try to pronounce that. That would be horrible for her, man. All right. So let me zoom in on this so that you guys can see these, because these are the actual warnings that came out. There's a lot of, in my opinion, mis and disinformation that's hitting. It took me a minute studying these to figure out what's actually going on. Number one, it's written down, UK time coming out, GMT. And on top of that, you've got other warnings that are coming out, March 6th, March 7th, March 7th, March 10th, March 10th, March 11th. And then we've got 4 of them pop up. And so people are saying that there's 4 ships that actually ended up getting hit. That's not true. If you look, you've got 2 warnings and then 2 updates that are coming out. And this is warning 1826, which we can go down here and reference 1826. But before we do that, I want to open up warning 1726 from yesterday. I believe this is the one I'm looking at. And you guys can see here, it was yesterday on March 10th, 08 UTC. And I want you to read what it says. They have received a report of an incident 36 nautical miles north of Abu Dhabi. And they've got it plotted right there on the map. The master reports witnessing a splash and heard a loud bang close to the proximity of the bulk carrier. So what that means is that they fired a freaking ballistic missile at a tanker. Now, the question is, why did they fire a ballistic missile at this particular tanker? And this is where they report the location at this time. Now, this came out yesterday after their banks ended up getting attacked. Thank you, Peter, for gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Appreciate you, brother. So this is down here. Now, as I talked before, you've got their, what do you call it? You've got their monetary system that, in my opinion, likely got attacked by the UAE, and you got an oil tanker. I believe that stack of ships I showed you guys, that's just in a large group, is like right about this vicinity right here. But they decided to shoot a ballistic missile or an anti-ship ballistic missile, something, at this freaking ship. It could have been a Shahed drone that just crashed down in the middle of the ocean. We don't know. But given the fact that we now have ships that are on fire over in the Strait of Hormuz, kind of makes a guy wonder whether or not that they're actually targeting specific ships that were inbound or outbound from the UAE as retaliation, trying to affect that economy, as if they're trying to shut down, certain ports. So that was the warning number 1 that ended up coming out yesterday. I'm going to close that one out for you guys. That was that warning right there. And then 1826 came out. Immediately following that, they have received an incident 25 nautical miles northwest of Ras Al Khaimah, UAE. Master of the container vessel reported the vessel sustained damage from a suspected but unknown projectile. Extent of the damage is currently unknown, but under investigation by the crew. And then they put that right off the freaking coast of the UAE. You guys can see, the pinned location that they have, but then right up over here in that yellow circle is where that ended up taking place. So they said it was from an unknown projectile. And that would make sense given the previous warning that they ended up putting out, that you ended up having something splash down over in the ocean. And that came out at 0158. And again, that's 1826 at 0158 the following day. So a little over, it's 25 hours later that this next one ends up coming out. Then we go back and we go, okay, so that was 1826, and then we have 1926 that comes out. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. 1926. They have received a report of an incident 11 nautical miles north of Oman in the Strait of Hormuz. It has been reported that a cargo vessel has been hit by an unknown projectile in the Straits of Hormuz, which has resulted in a fire on board. Vessel requested assistance and the crews have evacuated the vessel. Those were the images that I was showing you guys a little bit earlier. that one vessel where the hole was in the bottom of the hole at the bottom of the ship. Good luck, Candace. So that's where that one ended up striking it, right up over there. Now, so we've got now 2 hits on commercial vessels that have been put out. This is 19, so we've got 18 and 19 are the 2 that they ended up putting out. We close out of 18 and 19, and then we go up and we have 20 over in the Strait of Hormuz. So 18, 19, and 20 have all been hits. Look at that one. UKMTO has received a report of an incident 50 nautical miles northeast of Dubai, UAE. Master of the bulk carrier has reported their vessel being hit by an unknown projectile. There is no report of any environmental impact. Crews are reported to be safe as well. Authorities are investigating. And again, we look at the terrain and we look at the area. It's all the way out here. All the way out here in the middle. So the one ship that actually ended up getting hit at the bottom of the hole, all right, I believe is this one that is right off the frickin', like the peak of the frickin' of Dubai, like literally in the strait. This other one out here in the middle, they're saying got hit by an unknown projectile. Now, I don't have pictures of all of these ships to be able to bring up and show you guys these things, but they're all saying unknown projectile, unknown projectile, unknown projectile. Nobody's claiming that they're mines. The only one that I think is an actual mine is that image that I ended up showing you. That one speaks to me as if it's a mine that ended up smacking in the bottom of the ship. I can't picture a projectile, making that impact. I mean, it could, theoretically speaking, have crashed down into the bottom of that sucker if we look at it and where that's at. You could, theoretically speaking, have had a projectile. This one's clearly, up on the top. But you could have theoretically had a projectile, come down at a lower attack angle or whatever and smack into the very bottom in the back up over here. And then you can, somehow get a freaking fire started that way. I just don't think that this type of damage would have been done, underneath the ship from a ballistic missile. This to me looks like it was a hit by a mine. Croup Mintz says, Cadence, Matt, not Candace. I spent 7 seconds coming up with that joke. Yes. Cadence Owens. Owens. Yeah, I can't screw as much stuff up as her, man. It's nuts to me. They have suicide boats. They do have suicide boats. So it is possible that they launched their suicide boats and sent them out there as well. Now, that is also something, and I brought this up yesterday, that Zelensky is now sending troops from Ukraine over into the Middle East to advise coalition forces. They were saying that it was primarily to do with the Shahed drone threat and that he's sending them over there in order to advise and to help save lives. It is possible, though, for those of you guys that haven't followed the Ukraine war, it is possible, though, that they're unmanned, suicide vessels that they use. I'm trying to remember what the hell you call them. But Russia also employs unmanned suicide vessels. So does Ukraine. And they're very, very familiar with it. And so this is also something that Ukraine can actually help with. I know a lot of people on the conservative side, and I got a lot of people who are conservative that follow this channel, don't necessarily like Ukraine. Don't like the United States supporting Ukraine, and even think that Ukraine coming in here right now and helping us with this is the least that they can do for all of the military support that we've provided them. But here is the unbiased truth, which is Ukrainian blood is what has earned the experience to know how to stop this stuff. Ukrainian blood is what has earned the experience to know how to get rid of those Shahed drones. And if the United States had a very decent handle on how to deal with the Shaheeds, we probably wouldn't be requesting their help. We probably wouldn't have them coming in to help. Now, it might be just a political move, all right, by Trump, or it might be a political move by Zelensky to offer help and say, look, we're going to come in here and help them out. But the truth is, Ukrainians have more world experience dealing with this stuff than anybody else. Unmanned surface vehicles. That's the word. Thank you. Thank you, Corey. Thank you. So they've got more experience dealing with this stuff than anybody else. And that experience is invaluable. I don't care if you think that Ukraine's a crap country. I don't care what you think about it. In warfare, experience is what matters, right? When you're actually paying for things in blood, you end up learning how these things work. And it's very, very important. Sadistic says, glad to be able to make a few live casts again after the last couple of years, and good to see you still hard charge, Matt. Thank you for all that you do. No, I appreciate you, Sadistic. So that is the facts, and that is the truth. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to talk up Ukraine like they're the bee's knees when it comes to warfare. I don't believe that at all. If they were the bee's knees when it came to warfare, I think we'd have a completely different war on our hands over inside of, Eastern Ukraine. That's just not the case. And when it comes to defensive capabilities, you cannot argue that they've been holding the line very well against the Russians, and that they have protected their waterways very, very well. They've also protected as best as humanly possible, against all of these drone strikes. So they have a lot of experience with that, and it's going to come in very, very handy. Let's go get back over here. And start jumping back on this. So again, we had these warnings that ended up coming out all in a strip. We had 17, 18, 19, and 20. 17 was the ballistic missile warning that ended up coming out, that they ended up shooting at them. And then we ended up having this last one that came out. Now we see an update on 19. All right. So now we have an update on 19. Let's go over and check out that update on 19. All right. And here is where it gets refined. They have received a report 11 nautical miles north of Oman. So again, this is an update, right? This is an update to 1926. And look how far off it is. The Strait of Hormuz. It has been reported that a cargo vessel has been hit by an unknown projectile in the Strait of Hormuz, which has resulted in a fire on board. The vessel has requested assistance. The crews are evacuated. Update. CSO has reported that the fire on board the vessel has been extinguished and that there's no environmental impact at the time. A skeleton crew remains on board. Vessels are advised to transit with caution and report any suspicious activity to the UK MTO while authorities continue to investigate. And you guys can see it right there, right up the freaking peak, is where that incident ended up occurring. Then they ended up having another update, which came out, that is to 1826. And we go back and we look at 1826 because I know it gets kind of confusing on where they're at. That is the one of 1826. And this is what they're reporting for the update on 1826. As we go down, we take a look at it. Update. They have been informed that there is no environmental impact as a result of the incident. Vessels are advised to transit with caution and report any suspicious activity to them. So again, we have our one impact that's confirmed, right off the frickin' right off the apex, of the UAE over inside the strait. Other than that, everything else appears to be off to the side. Now, I highly doubt that Iran has gone out and put, a ton of mines out there. Like I said, the news is reporting that they ended up dumping less than 10 mines before the U.S. ended up striking them. And for those of you guys that are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, it was Trump yesterday that ended up coming out with this stuff. I want to make sure I got the right day up on my screen before I come out with this crap. Sergeant. Yeah, here we go. So this is from the White House that they ended up putting out yesterday. If Iran has put out any mines in the Hormuz Strait and we have no reports of them doing so, we want them removed immediately. If for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. On the other hand, if they remove what they have placed, it will be a giant step in the right direction. All right, so that was the first statement that they ended up coming out with. And then immediately following that, just a couple hours later, we have Pete Hegseth that ends up putting this out. I am pleased to report that within the last few hours, we have hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine lane boats and or ships, with more to follow. Fox McCloud says, I'm conservative and I agree with Ukraine's right to defend itself. Yeah, I mean, it's a common sense deal, man. I don't know when it became controversial to state that Russia is bad and we should be doing everything we can to prevent like Soviet aggression. And it's not even like the USSR anymore, but in my opinion, it's the same damn thing. Like Russia hasn't really changed since the collapse of the Soviet Union to where it's at today. As a matter of fact, Putin and his like radical ideology. Yeah, Putin's got his own radical ideology. He might be a smart man, but it doesn't mean he's not motivated by a crazy ideology, like his crazy politics and everything else that are going on. And it's my belief, as I said before, the reason that we are still meddling over here has absolutely nothing to do with Iran and everything to do with Russia and China. Iran just happens to be the middleman in this entire issue right here as we continue to deal with this. And this is something that I've been trying to update you guys on and inform you guys of for the last God only knows how long. That it's Russia, China, and Iran that we are mainly concerned about. By ripping Iran out, we're going to be good to go. So it's not surprising to me that Ukraine is willing to jump in here and helping to ensure that frickin' Iran gets taken out as well. I'm not the only one that knows this. A lot of people in this world know this. The problem is that mainstream media doesn't pick up on it. This war is just as beneficial to Ukraine as it is to the United States, as it is to Israel. Like Iran being ripped out is going to hurt Russia bad. It's going to hurt Russia bad. Now, in the meantime, it might help them a little bit because Russia's main, monetary income, one third of Russian GDP ends up coming from their oil sales. And so as long as the price per barrel is like continuing to get ramped up, as long as it sits about 60 to 65 bucks a barrel, they're doing really good. And it was up above 90 the last I checked. I mean, I could go over and look at it, but it had driven itself right up above 90 current cost barrel of oil. Crude oil prices today. Here we go. Crude oil prices today. We've got them sitting at 87.20. So they're down a little bit, but they had reached all the way up to like 110 up on that sucker, which is freaking insane. But that's, I mean, it's kind of where it's at today. Anyway, so yeah, Russia, they're not going to be very happy with all this other stuff. CENTCOM commander did come out and give a big brief on what's actually happening over with the war in Iran. And I think it's very important that everybody end up listening to this. This is probably one of the best updates that we've given to this day. And it lays out very importantly a couple different things. I was shocked to hear him actually give a shout out to the Space Force and treat these guys as if they're some sort of special operations force. He's like, yeah, we're not going to talk about what the Space Force does, but they've been crushing it.
I'm Admiral Brad Cooper here at United States Central Command, where I'm leading the forces executing Operation Epic Fury. First, I want you to know that we continue to keep the families of our fallen heroes and our wounded teammates in our thoughts and prayers. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the families of the 50,000 American servicemen and women deployed in and around the Middle East. I'm grateful for your selfless sacrifice, and I know that Americans across the country hold you in their hearts. Let me start by offering my overall assessment of Operation Epic Fury. In short, U.S. forces continue delivering devastating combat power against the Iranian regime. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. U.S. combat power is building, Iranian combat power is declining. And we remain centered on very clear military objectives in eliminating Iran's ability to project power against Americans and against its neighbors. Every day, we're striking hard at Iranian ballistic missile and drones. To date, we have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran, including more than 60 ships using a variety of precision weapon systems.
CENTCOM has struck more than 5,500 targets inside of Iran and destroyed over 60 Iranian ships. So I want you guys to keep this in perspective. As I sat there and talked about a couple oil tankers, civilian oil tankers being hit by Iran, 5,500 targets executed and over 60 Iranian ships being hit and sunk.
Just yesterday, we had strike waves nearly every hour from different locations and directions going into Iran. We also took out the last of 4 Soleimani-class warships. That's an entire class of Iranian ships now out of the fight.
An entire class of Iranian warships destroyed. The Soleimani warships. They love those frickin' things, and every single one of them is now gone.
I'd characterize our strikes as being unpredictable, dynamic, and decisive. Since the first 24 hours of this campaign, Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks have dropped drastically. But it's worth pointing out that Iranian forces continue to deliberately target innocent civilians in Gulf countries while hiding behind their own people as they launch attacks from highly populated cities in Iran. Of course, forces executing Operation Epic Fury aren't just defending against Iranian threats. We are methodically dismantling them by hitting Iranian missiles and drones, as we also strike their defense industrial base. Just last night, our bomber force hit a large ballistic missile manufacturing facility, as an example. So it's not just about what's shooting at us today, it's also about eliminating the threat in the future. Now, let me show you a few of the results from the tremendous efforts by America's joint force. Here, you see an Iranian Jamaran-class warship, a large patrol ship, a drone smuggling vessel, and 4 other surface combatants docked at Chabahar port in the Gulf of Oman the day before we launched Operation Epic Fury. Here's the same pier 4 days later, all ships taken out of action. This Bayandar-class surface ship was hit and rolled on its side. Here's another example. Here you see 2 Iranian surface combatants docked at an Iranian naval base near the Strait of Hormuz, just hours into the campaign. And here's what they looked like 3 days later, engulfed in flames after we struck them with a precision weapon. For years, the Iranian regime has threatened commercial shipping and U.S. forces in international waters. Our mission is to end their ability to project power and harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. From the air, we've achieved a concentration of air power with back-to-back waves of advanced fighters creating constant pressure on the enemy every single day. Our dominance is not a solo effort, it's a testament to the strength of our ironclad alliances. We continue to coordinate closely and effectively with Israel in this very large operation, and we are also coordinating and serving side by side with all of our partners in the Middle East. We're on a path to eliminating Iran's ability to threaten Americans and our friends, and we are achieving this through a combination of lethality, precision, and rapid innovation. Let me highlight a few examples, at least the ones that aren't classified, of how we are achieving lethal effects in entirely new ways. First, our warfighters are leveraging a variety of advanced AI tools. These systems help us sift through vast amounts of data in seconds, so our leaders can cut through the noise and make smarter decisions faster than the enemy can react. Humans will always make final decisions on what to shoot and what not to shoot, and when to shoot, but advanced AI tools can turn processes that used to take hours and sometimes even days into seconds. I continue to be impressed with all the branches of the U.S. military. The entire team is performing superbly. Strike operations from our joint force continue, as I've said. I assess that we are clearly exercising air superiority over vast swaths of Iran. We have the most integrated air defense umbrella in the Middle East, and our defensive operations from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Space Force teams are performing magnificently. A note about the Space Force. Our space superiority has been a critical enabler to this fight. Unseen by the world, the Space Force is doing 2 things. First, they're degrading Iranian capability, and second, they're helping to protect American forces, and I'll have to leave it right there. All told, despite this incredible progress,
I can't tell you any more about the Space Force. I just got to tell you that they're whooping butt.
No mistake, we remain highly vigilant. And I just could not be prouder of our Operation Epic Fury team, and I know the American people share that same pride. To all our warriors out there, please keep up the great work, and Godspeed. Thanks so much.
Jimmy O'Rourke said that United States military are now experts at building coral reef, and I couldn't help but agree. I ended up running in this poll while that video was playing, and I asked you guys if you have been unsubbed to the channel and forcing you to kind of like re-up if YouTube randomly unsubbed you. And shockingly, 30% of you guys said that YouTube has unsubbed you from the channel. That's a big percentage of people that YouTube just decided to drop from the channel. So make sure you guys, number one, that you're subscribed. If you're not getting notifications, unsub, resub, make sure your notification bell's turned on. Do everything that you guys can in order to make this stuff go good. And we'll just continue to drive on. It is what it is. Now, the missile site that he was talking about, I actually believe that this is one of them that's actually up on the screen here. And I believe it's a production facility, or maybe it is a launch facility. I have no idea. But this is one of the missile sites that ended up getting leveled by the U.S. military. You guys can see the after effects right there. I mean, it is completely destroyed, no longer in service. That sucker's gone. Over in Saqqez, we have police stations that are reportedly getting flattened. And so this is just more, by the way, evidence. He said that we are launching waves of airstrikes every single hour over inside of Iran. Every hour yesterday, we're launching a new wave of airstrikes. And the media is focusing heavily on the Strait of Hormuz because you've got a couple vessels that ended up getting hit, likely by ballistic missiles. The only one I think that could have been hit by a mine was that one. Interesting, the actual accuracy percentage as well. They only put out a warning on one ship, a warning for one ship that had either a drone or a ballistic missile that splashed down somewhere near it. But out of all of those, it's like 75% hit rate. If that is what they were doing, it's not that far away as far as like range is concerned. So their accuracy is going to be greatly improved as far as those ballistic missiles go. But yeah. And in the meantime, United States military has continued to target their launchers. And the problem is what Iran has switched to, minus that one right there. What Iran has switched to is taking these launchers and hiding them, in civilian populated areas. And there's video after video that you can see that gets released of these launchers that are in the back being disguised as like semi trucks and pickup trucks and all of that other stuff that are being shipped around Iran, and they're just getting blown to hell. Cookie says, Matt, in time, we have trust issues with what our government tells us. Why do you trust what they're telling us about what's going on in Iran? I don't trust with what our government's telling us about what's going on in Iran. You need to follow the channel a little bit closer, brother. United States government is telling us the only reason that we're over inside of Iran is because of their uranium enrichment and their threat to U.S. troops over inside the region. So we want to limit the ballistic missile capabilities, and we want to make sure that they're not funding foreign terror organizations. That we want to make sure that they're not enriching uranium. That's the official stance of this administration. This is what Matt believes. And this isn't what Matt believes. This is actually like empirical data that ends up drawing all of this stuff together. I have no doubt that this has nothing to do with what it is they're saying. I think that gives the United States of America targeting authority. I think it gives Donald Trump targeting authority with the different stuff that Donald Trump states. Right? Trump is stating that they're enriching uranium. That's true. Trump states that they are funding foreign terror organizations. That's true. Trump states that they are, attempting to build ICBMs. Also true. Or at least there's a lot of evidence that would suggest that. However, before the war in Venezuela kicked off, I told this channel, you guys watch, but after Venezuela kicks off, don't be surprised if Iran kicks off because of this. I talked about this the day before we ended up ripping Maduro out. Perfect timing, beautiful timing. And then we start seeing all of this go down at the same time. I don't trust what the United States government tells the American people. I don't. I don't at all. And let's not forget, by the way, our race to capture Greenland. Why would we race to capture Greenland? Well, because Russia and their ballistic missile capability, their ICBMs, if they're firing them at North America with where they're positioned, would fly directly over Greenland. The United States would want to put aerial defense assets over in there that we likely do not want, coalition partners to know about. I actually believe it was Donald Trump that said the Golden Dome. We need Greenland for the Golden Dome, is what he actually came out with. And he's racing to do it right before we strike Iran. And I want you to think about that. We're racing to get our stuff into Greenland before we struck Iran. Massive influx of NATO troops. Massive influx of NATO troops. And it makes me question whether or not Trump's rhetoric on Greenland about invading was an excuse to just have all of those freaking NATO assets pour into Greenland in order to protect us from Russia for when we go after Iran. Honestly, I think that's a very viable thing right here. Like, how do you move so many anti-ballistic missile capabilities and stuff like that under the radar? We couldn't even move like all of our assets in the Middle East, man. Like we were dropping positions, like China was dropping positions. OSINT guys are out there just reporting movements of aircraft. I was tracking SOCOM troops leaving frickin' Bragg, leaving Fort Campbell before they ended up going over and taking on the Bella One north of the UK. And this is just OSINT stuff that you can pull offline. And so if we want to make sure that Russia is not going to attack the United States of America, and Trump ends up stating it's for the Golden Dome, but we know we've got to move a bunch of equipment in there, wouldn't it make sense for Trump to basically lie and say that we're going to attack Greenland when the reality is we need a cover story for why NATO is going to influx all of those troops over in there and start building up freaking forces in that region so that it doesn't set off alarm bells for Russia? Seems logical to me, particularly when we're about when we were about to rip out Venezuela, we're about to rip out Iran, and it's going to leave China and Russia just flapping in the freaking wind monetarily and militarily speaking, and all of those other things. So I do not trust the United States government. I don't think that they're telling the truth to the American people about what's actually going on here. And I think the reason that we are going so hard and so fast with all of this is because Trump, in his mind, believes, and I think he's actually correct, that Trump actually believes that this is the last chance to kind of stop that Russia and Chinese threat. And the crux of it for him is going to be Iran. And if we rip Iran out, it's going to drastically impact Russia and China. And we took Greenland, and we needed Greenland, as Trump stated, for the Golden Dome. But we needed an excuse before we took out Venezuela and before we took out Iran to shove as many troops onto Greenland as possible without tipping off Russia that we were about to do all of this crap. That, my friend, is what I believe. And no, I do not trust the United States government. This is all stuff that I've openly talked about on this channel for a very long time. I do not take their word for it, especially, when it comes down to a lot of the things that are happening. But as far as, us destroying Iran and taking out a lot of their capabilities, yeah, I do believe. I do believe that we are crushing them pretty hard. I'll tell you the one that I don't believe, which is going to be the IRGC. I don't believe the Iranian regime. If I was to have to pick between a reliable source between the United States government versus Iran, I'm going to go with the United States government. Last I checked, you guys can complain about Epstein. You can complain about a lot of different things. And I hear you out on it. We can complain about a lot of different things, but the one thing that I wouldn't, let me find this real quick, because it's hilarious. You guys remember the 12-day war? Iran claimed to shot down a US F-35. This was the AI generated image of a US F-35 that allegedly got shot down. Blew the wing off of it and it crashed. They did such a fabulous job. They claimed that they went over and they took out the Lincoln, that they hit the Lincoln. No. By the way, I remember specifically covering this and laughing about it just because of the proportions are so ginormous. So who do I trust more? The people that generated this image on your screen and said that they took out the Lincoln, or the United States government when it comes down to threat assessment and target assessment? I am going to go with the United States government on what it is that we're doing in our effects and impacts on the target. That's what I'm going with. If you want to believe the country that puts this crap out, by all means. Yesterday on the show, ended up bringing up what was taking place over inside of Iran. Hopefully this is the right video. Yeah, it is. I think this is the video. And there's a couple of these, and I played this yesterday. Iranian state TV says that this is one of their rallies, and these are their millions. I'll say it again, millions. This is what they claim, millions of supporters that took to the streets over inside of Tehran, and that as they were being bombed, they continued to cheer. If you saw the show last night, you know what I'm about to do. I'm gonna start the video and I'm gonna run a poll. Why do I trust the United States government over this guy? They claim those are bombs dropping. I haven't even ran this poll for very long. 70% of you guys understand that those aren't bombs, that's rapport from some type of rifle that's in the background with all of these people standing. It's also not millions. You got, what, maybe 2,000 people standing out there. And this guy, for some reason, has to be on his phone as the camera's rolling before he starts speaking, and then the guns and everything go off. And then everybody is looking up. Look at what everybody's looking at. They're not paying attention to him. They're not paying attention to the guy with the microphone. Where are they looking? Where are these people looking? Up at the buildings, everything else. And then he manages to go that way as well. They're all looking over in that general direction. And then what do we have? Regime members with frickin' rifles standing there overlooking the crowd. And it just so happens that they all have the same size flags out in the crowd and everything else. It's absolutely nuts. Tom says it's dubbed over audio. That's why these dudes on the phone. So this way he knows when to react to the sound. Could be. Very well could be. But I'm sorry. This is not mass support of the millions by the Iranian people. This is very clearly staged. All of these flags are the frickin' same. Every single one of them. They're all handed out to like the people. And they're not even looking at the dang guy. And you got people with rifles that are standing over there. So if you want to ask me, you know, which government I believe more when it at least comes down to accurate statistics on what's taking place over in Iran, I'm going to go with the United States government. That's just me. As far as our public messaging and what we tell the American people, I don't believe a damn word out of their mouth. I don't think we're over there because of a ballistic missile threat. I think those are good excuses, kind of like a pretext stop for a cop. Your license plate lights out. Yep, sure. But you probably already profiled the vehicle, know it's inside of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's essentially what our government's doing. Reza Pahlavi came out with a new message. I think it's actually kind of interesting because I've documented over time that you can watch his messaging change along with the West's. So you see his messaging change with the West. Originally, when he came out, it had to do with, you know, the Iranian government murdering people and all of this other crap, and rising up against the government and everything else. And then the West got a hold of him. And when the West got a hold of him, we watched his messaging shift to what Iran is not going to be doing in the future, how it's going to align with the United States, how it's going to align with Israel, how they're going to cut off funding to terrorists, like literally every line that we wanted in our freaking demands to Iran before we started this war. And it's very interesting. Listen to what he says now. Those words are really small. He said, "Dear compatriots, we are now at a decisive stage in our final struggle. I urge you to secure your essential provisions as soon as possible. And for your own safety, withdraw from the streets and remain in your homes. Continue to strike and do not show up for work." Interesting that we have attacks on their financial network. And he says, continue to strike and do not show up for work. He says, continue your nightly chance to show your unity. To the military and law enforcement forces, this is your last chance to break from the oppressive forces and join your people. Await my final call. Now, this is one of those things that I look at and I go, very, very interesting. He's telling people now, he's continuing to step in line with the United States government messaging and Israel's messaging, which is telling people to defect, telling them it's their final chance or they're all basically going to die. But then most importantly, he says, await my final call. Now, whether or not you think this man is going to run the country when all of this is said and done, it doesn't matter. I want you to take and put your frickin' propaganda blinders on for just a hot second. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that he's telling people to await his final call. And what do you think that final call is going to be? Whether you like it or not, there is a lot of people that support this man. I'd say the majority of the people on the ground inside of Iran are supporting him, or at least backing him or believe in him. And if that's the case, and he says, await my final call, is telling people to defect and telling them to stay out of the streets, etc. But he needs numbers. Iran's going to need numbers. When this man says go, that's your green light. I think that's when you're going to start seeing the issue or the insurgency from the Kurds taking place. I think that's when you're going to see the coup within the military happen. I think that's when all of those things are going to take place. And I've talked about this before. We are 11 days now deep into this war out of a planned, according to Trump, 4 to 5 week operation. 11 days out of a planned 4 to 5 week operation. They say we're ahead of schedule. Okay. Well, in order for all of those different things to take place, because what they're screaming right now, the terrorist supporters, what they're screaming right now is that the U.S. is failing because there hasn't been an uprising yet, because there hasn't been a coup yet that's taken place over inside Iran. That's not the case. What you're waiting on is specific triggers. And as soon as those specific triggers are met, then you're going to see this mouthpiece open his mouth and tell people to rise up. And we're going to continue to bomb. And that's when you're going to likely see a coup. That's when you're going to likely see an uprising, but not until then. So we've got to be a little bit patient here. People think, they want everything to happen overnight. Now, if you're wondering why he told people to stay down, here's why.
از اینجا به بعد در جنگ همه مسائلمون رو جنگی می‌بینیم. لذا کسانی که در فضای مجازی بخوان تشویش اذهان عمومی بکنن به عنوان دشمن تلقی میشن و باشون برخورد میکنیم. به چندین هزار نفر پیامک دادیم. کسانی که شاید یه مقدار فریب خورده بودن و از کرده خودشون باز داشتن خودشون را چندین نفر هم دستگیر کردیم. پرونده براشون تشکیل شده، به دستگاه قضایی معرفی شدن و با اطمینان خاطر هم دستگاه قضایی اعلام هم کرد به مردم که از مصادره و اعدام و زندان در انتظار اینها هست که ذهن مردم عزیز ما را میخوان مخدوش بکنن و کار بکنن. ما
Execution awaits anybody who spreads the misinformation. If anybody takes to the streets at the behest of the enemy.
اینجا دیگه اگر کسی به خواست دشمن بیاد، اون رو ما معترض غیره نمیبینیم، اون رو ما دشمن میبینیم و آنی میکنیم که با دشمن میکنیم، برخورد میکنیم که با دشمن میکنیم. همه بچهای ما دست به ماش آمادن در حراست از انقلابشون، در حمایت از مردمشون و میهنشون. لذا در کل کشور دستور تیر داده شده، سارقین بدانن، یا تعدادشون هم تو این چند روزه با ضرب تیر از پای در اومدن در حالی که میخواستن سرقت انجام بدن و به نظرم خبرش به همه سارقان رسیده. اگر میخوان باز امتحان کنن ما در خدمتشون هستیم.
He's not playing. He straight up said orders to shoot had been issued. This is what the people are up against. So if they take to the streets now, while these bombs are dropping, they plan on leveling everyone. Everyone. They will kill everyone that goes out in the streets. So they've got to be armed, and you need the military to flip and turn. Now, this is interesting because it can actually work out to Iran's detriment. The members of the military that got ordered to shoot everyone might not be happy about that, might end up flipping and turning around. But there's a lot of people that are going to be happy about it. There's a lot of people that love the Islamic regime, and they're going to want to stick around for it. Those are not the only warnings that ended up coming out getting issued. And we're seeing the same thing across the board. This is Iranian state TV.
غبار فتنه که خوابید به قول محسن چاووشی یقتون رو خواهیم گرفت دونه دونتون رو. الان دارین اتفاق میفته. مصادره اموال که چیزی نیست. ننتون رو به عزاتون مینشونیم. اونایی که الان خیال خام دارید و فکر میکنید شلوغ شده و باید یه کاری کرد. اینم برای شماها، چه در داخل چه در خارج. ببرید بفرستید بره برای هر کی که دوست داره اینا رو بشنوه.
Both inside the country and outside the country. So the regime is threatening, after the war is done, to target people inside and outside the country. And those have already started taking place. Hits have been put out on numerous Iranian influencers all over the dang place, and they're going after them. They will go after their people. It is a very deadly situation and delicate for them right now. So as far as a quote unquote revolution is concerned, for them upturning and overturning their government, people need to be exceptionally patient with this. It is not something that that you can just willy-nilly run out there and try to get people out there to go and do it. Now, I told you, monetary system had been attacked. This is the bank Ceph. Allegedly, their data center location had been targeted overnight. So this is Iran's monetary system. The data center that runs their monetary system got hit allegedly. If that's the case, Iran's now in a very much weaker space. Because not only is the UAE going after them, but now we've got attacks on these centers. And because of that, Iran's actually been issuing warnings out saying that they're going to be going after the West now, that they're going to be launching cyber attacks, that all of those different things are going to happen. And here's the thing. I don't think the IRGC is currently capable of launching those cyber attacks, but I know both Russia and China are. Both Russia and China are. And I would not be surprised if we do start seeing cyber attacks in the United States because of this crap. Additionally, I would expect to see some more of these Iranian-inspired terror attacks to start taking place. This is just a really good video out of Iraq. This is a PMF. This would be the IRGC's local ground militia over inside of Iraq. They're Shiite freaking militias. This is one of their ammo depots that got blasted. Check that out. So over the last several days, United States, in conjunction with Iraqi forces, have been going after the PMF inside of northern Iraq. Very much worried about the Shiite militias targeting the Kurds, going up over into Iran in order to start backing up the Iranian regime. Because of that, it appears, on top of the fact that they had launched numerous attacks around Baghdad and in the north, they're getting taken out. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the intelligence that is being used by the Iranians to target coalition forces in the region is the result of the PMF, and they're being schwacked. The PMF, for those of you guys that don't know, is an IRGC's puppet force, and they have been stood up there for quite a while. Now, this is allegedly the oil facility over inside of Oman that's on fire. I know some of you guys had asked me about this and said, well, did Iran actually target the oil? Yeah, they did. They did. They went over to Oman. I don't know if it was Shahed drones that ended up smacking into them. It looks like 2 out of the 5 silos or 2 out of 6 silos ended up getting hit. Not that many overall, to be perfectly honest with you. But yes, they did indeed blast them. They can be seen on fire from a distance and everything else. This image, I think, is a little bit better and up close. You guys can see it right there. So they did. Iran did get some drones over there. It looks like they smashed a couple silos. Do I think it's a make or break deal? Absolutely not. This is the Middle East. There's freaking like more oil than there is people. Like, there's just too much oil over there. You know what I mean? So I don't think this is going to necessarily drive the cost of oil up to $200. What would drive the cost of oil up to $200 is greedy bankers, to be quite frank, and traders. As I've talked to you guys about the silver market in the past, how things are traded on paper before they're actually traded the physical commodity itself. It's not like people are buying a barrel of oil, holding on to it, and then selling said barrel of oil. What they do is they buy paper contracts for barrels of oil, and then they later sell those paper contracts. When they expect the price to go up, they'll buy and hold on to them. And when you get a lot of people that are buying the contracts because they expect the price to go up, it goes up, and then they sell them, and that's when everything dumps. And this is how a lot of banks and everybody ends up making money. And so bad press is really what has driven up the price of oil. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not understand how the system works and what actually ends up happening. And so they think that this is all Iran and that Iran is just doing amazing things, and that they're, I don't know, that somehow they're going to be responsible, for driving the oil price up because of what they're doing in the Strait. It's partially true, but it's not because of their gross military power. It's because of media. This is what appears to be, I don't even remember what this thing is, a Ford Focus, maybe? I have no idea. Anyways, it tried driving into the White House today. Apparently ran right into the freaking guardrails. The guy has been detained. Apparently he just drove right through the fence and right into a freaking barricade over at the White House. Not a lot of information that came out on it prior to me actually starting the stream, but it is possible that we start seeing terror style attacks here in the United States of America. I'm just going to throw that out there, whether it be explosives, whether it be, gunshots. U.S. consulate up inside of Toronto ended up getting shot up yesterday. Obviously the TATP that was being used over the weekend to target Jacob Lang, who as a human being, I don't like, I detest. Nonetheless, he doesn't deserve, and nor does any of his supporters deserve, to have freaking, homemade frag devices thrown at them. So, yeah, I would thoroughly expect things like this to continue to take place into the future, and I don't think that it's going to stop anytime soon. Even if this war ends tomorrow, you're going to have people that are loyal to the regime continuing on with this madness for some time to come. I wouldn't even call it sleeper cells. The guys from this weekend, they weren't a cell. They were just two morons that happened to get their hands on an HME cookbook, which you can find online. And they did a piss poor job building it. It was an actual cell over this weekend that ended up, throwing those explosive devices at Jacob Lang. The same guys that built them shouldn't be the same guys that are throwing them. If you have an actual cell, a portion of that is going to be building your IEDs. A portion of that is going to be employing them. A portion of them might even, depending on how big it is, you have like a cook, and then you have a guy that's making the bombs, and then you have the people that are employing the bombs, right? And so we didn't see any of that. What we saw was two idiots that looked like they were cooking in a storage locker, did a piss poor job putting these devices together, used horrible fuse, which was fireworks fuse, in order to try to get these things to go off. And they failed. They failed miserably. The guy took, on the one image that I found, he had two fuses that were sticking out the top of the frag, a homemade frag that he had made. And I was like, those are cheap fireworks fuses. And then yesterday they ended up putting out information. Yep. The day before, or a couple days before the day after we attacked Iran, basically, he walked in to a fireworks shop and ended up buying fuse, like little cheap fireworks fuse. So didn't work out for him. Didn't turn out so good. And that is why you have those specific cells, because it's not as easy as everybody makes it out to be. Like, oh, I can just go buy some crap and make a bomb. Not really. I mean, you can, but it's probably going to fail because you don't know what you're doing. It's not as easy as people think. And every time you mix explosives, every time you do it, you get different sensitivities. You get different things that it is sensitive to. Not all explosives are created equally. Some of them will go off when they get touched by an acid. Some of them will go off with just a little bit of friction, on a freaking wooden table. Some of them will go off with, just there's lots of it that goes into it. Like fire, heat, pressure, shock, right? Like all of those things, heat, shock, friction is what you really need in order to make these things go. But they failed. I don't think it was an advanced terror cell. And I don't think that we have advanced terror cells as people like to claim, or at least that many of them here in the United States of America. What I think we have is a bunch of radical jihadis that are here. But it is possible. Now, remember how I told you guys about I don't trust the Trump administration at all when it comes to the overall picture of everything that we're doing. We've talked about illegal immigration a lot inside of this country, and kicking out all the illegal immigrants. And I think that's part of the reason, what's up on your screen right here is part of the reason why we did mass deportations for such a long period of time. This threat with Iran, this threat with Hezbollah, Venezuela, Yemen, has been there since day one. And I think if we hadn't done the amount of mass deportations we'd done, you likely would have even more terror threats. I think the reason they're surging and focusing on certain areas is because of known, right, hotbeds for these people, like known safe havens for these types of people that would do that. And so by having the big flux of DHS going in, just ripping people out of the country left and right, as we should, I think that's one of the reasons. I think one of the other reasons has to do with the voting, which is where SAVE Act comes in. I think all of these things. So I don't necessarily just look and say, oh yeah, 100%. I trust this administration. Absolutely not. I really don't. And I don't think the American people know, quite frankly, how dangerous the world is. I don't think they care to know. But I do know one thing, and that was ignoring all of these problems for decades is what got us in this position. And we can't do that again. The reason that this even exists is because we have had an isolationist mentality here in the United States of America. And that isolationist mentality is what's been killing us. And so that isolationist mentality needs to go away. We can't be having that anymore. We are in a global economy. We are in a world where what's going on globally affects us and impacts us directly here in the United States of America. We can't be ignoring things like that. And no, this is not a message that's being sent by the Trump administration. This is a message that Matt Tardio is telling you. I just, that's what I think. And you're stupid to ignore it. And you're stupid to think otherwise, that we can just bury our heads in the sand and pretend like, well, as long as we just stay here, it's not a big deal. Right? As long as we just ignore all of the madness of the IRGC, as long as we pretend like they're good people, it's all going to go away. No, they want to kill you. They want to kill you. And it's a religious war that we're fighting, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys later on this evening. Peace, love, happiness. God bless. I'm out of here.